Hi guys, this is Mr. Maloney coming to you from his basement. I hope this video finds you and your family doing well. And my job today is to give a brief reading lesson to follow up from what Mrs. Thalen did previously. And my lesson is actually the fifth lesson. And in this lesson, so lesson 5, I'm going to try using this little pointer and see if that helps us. It says students will recognize when a certain part from a chapter is more important, and I probably should have underlined that, and how that can help students understand the book better and what is really being said. And that's a big part of our lesson today. As a younger reader, you probably focused a lot on the story elements. You focused on the characters, the setting, the problem in the story, and how it got solved. And those things are certainly important as we continue to read. But as fourth grade readers, we need to think about more than just that. We need to be a reading detective, and we need to figure out the clues that authors are giving us as we read. And that's what our lesson's about today. I'm guessing at one point or another, your fourth grade teacher may have said something about having deeper comprehension or understanding something at a deeper level. That's what today's lesson is. It's not about the characters, the setting, and the problem. It's about how do we as readers really start to think about some of those hidden meanings, hidden clues that authors put into their strong fictional books to give the reader a chance to figure things out as they read. So let's get rolling here. Okay, so how do we think deeper? Well, first, as I said before, we don't just focus on the story elements. We're going to move beyond that. Are you aware that some parts of books are more important than others? Books are not like this, all the same all the time. I think of it like a roller coaster ride. If you've ever been on a roller coaster, there are parts that are certainly more exciting. There are parts where you are kind of allowed to catch your breath before the next important thing happens on that roller coaster. It's kind of the same with books. As a reader, we have to really think about what parts in our book are more important than others. And usually there are many clues along the way to help us figure that out. So another thing we're going to do as fourth grade readers, we want to start thinking like the author. What is the author really trying to say to us through his or her writing? If we can switch over from remembering story elements all the time to really asking questions like, why did he put this here? I wonder why she wrote this part like this. That really can help us with our comprehension at a deeper level. And I like to make the analogy of just being a reading detective. As you read, you are trying to uncover those clues that the author has given you. So, here are some clues to help you as a strategic reader. When an author repeats something in a story, oftentimes it is done because it is something important. He or she wants you to realize, hey, there's something going on here because I am repeating this. I remember from The Tiger Rising earlier in the year, the suitcase, Rob's feelings, was mentioned over and over again. And as we know, the suitcase wasn't a real suitcase, but it was kind of the example of how he kept his feelings to himself. So as a reader, when it's repeated over and over again, I know it's something important and it has a bigger meaning than what is just said right in that sentence. Another thing you should be doing besides paying attention to what is repeated is there something surprising? Is there something that really stands out? Because when an author does that, that is his or her way of letting you know this is important. It's either important now or it's going to be important later on during the lesson. I just said during the lesson. I didn't mean that. It's going to be important later on in the book. So, does your character act in a different way than you would expect? That's a clue. And then, notice if a new insight dawns on a character. For instance, does your character talk in a different way than you would expect? Does your character interact with a different character differently than you would think? There are reasons behind those. You might talk to a friend differently one day because you're in a fight with him or her. The same sort of things happen in a book. Those are clues authors leave for the reader so that we can start to figure out some of the really important things going on in that book. So, what can your brain do as a reader? So, there are two things going on as you read. There is you reading the words and making sense of them, but then you're also having a conversation with yourself. And these are some thought prompts. These are things your brain can and should be doing as you're reading to have a little conversation with yourself. So, I won't read them all, but your brain might say, could this have anything to do with, or I remember earlier in the story when. These are just sentence starters to get your brain thinking. So when you get your assignment in just a little bit, it's going to be from your I Survive book. If you're struggling a little bit, come back to this part of the video. And these are the sort of things your brain can be saying to try to get you thinking in a deeper way. Remember, we want to have a conversation with ourselves as we're reading to try to figure out what those clues might be. Okay, so this is just a quick repeat. Things to remember when trying to find important information about a part of a story or a book. Is something being repeated? Does something seem out of the ordinary or surprising? Does a character act differently than you are used to? There could be a longer list here, fourth graders, but I think this is a good place to start with these 3 items. If you can locate things like this as you're reading, it's going to help you think about a book more deeply and figure out what that author's trying to really get across. Now, you guys have been listening to your Number the Stars, chapter by chapter. And I wanted to use this to kind of go through how I'm thinking as I read this book. Now, I'm done with about chapter 4 right now. You might be a little bit past me or not quite there, and it's fine. One thing I noticed in chapter 3, we have a new character, and his name is Peter. And there seemed to be some things that got my brain working. First, Anna Marie gets woken up in the middle of the night because Peter is there. I thought that was kind of odd. It must mean he's pretty important. On page 23, it says, and her parents loved Peter too. They said he was like a son. So that must mean he's not a son, but he must be someone really important to his family. They also talk about how he was out after curfew. In those days during World War II in some cities, citizens weren't allowed out after a certain time. And it sounds like Peter's visiting after curfew, which seemed kind of odd to me too. So in chapter 3, I don't get all the answers, but I know Anna Marie's super excited to see him. It says he's like a son to the family. He's also out later at night than we would expect at that time, and it kind of seems sneaky in a sense. So that makes me wonder about Peter. Now, what I love about this book, it doesn't give us all the answers right away. But as a reader, I'm going to keep that in my brain. What's going on with this Peter guy? Because I think the author has left us a lot of clues in chapter 3. And then another one that struck me, I talked about things being repeated. Anna Marie and her running has been referenced 2 times in the first 3 chapters. It's how the book started. The book started with Anna Marie and Ellen having their running race. And at the time, I didn't think much of it. But then in chapter 3, it mentions, and this is her interaction with Peter, Anna Marie laughed. I won the girls' foot race last Friday at school, she told him proudly. Where have you been? We missed you. I know Anna Marie's proud of her running, but it seems odd to me that this author has mentioned what a fast runner this main character is 2 times in the first 23 pages. So that makes my brain wonder why that's being repeated. Now, my guess is it's going to be important later in the story, because otherwise I don't know why she would put that in 2 times. So I want to show you a sample response that I wrote. What I did is I reflected on Anna Marie and her running, and here's what I wrote. Let me move this. Okay, so here's my sample response, guys. And I know my video is going to be in the way a little bit, and hopefully I can move it in just a second. And if I mess it up, I mess it up. So here's my sample response. I know the authors give clues to the reader about things that might be important later in the story. I have noticed some clues in Number the Stars about Anna Marie. The beginning of the book starts with Ellen and Anna Marie having a race in the street. Anna Marie's very fast and she beats Ellen. I didn't think much of that at first. But then on page 23, Anna Marie says to Peter, I won the foot race last Friday at school, she told him proudly. Where have you been? We've missed you. I think these might be clues about that the author is leaving for me as a reader. How do I move this? There we go. It seems a bit odd. Sorry, guys. It seems a bit odd how fast of a runner Anna Marie. Holy cow, Mr. Maloney, what are you doing? It seems a bit odd that how fast of a runner Anna Marie is would be mentioned twice in the first 23 pages. That makes me think that there might come a time later in the book where Anna Marie is called on to run fast. I think the author is giving me clues about that. So 4th graders, this is a sample that I wrote, and your job for the next time we get together is to reflect on your I Survive book. It could be something early in the book, could be something more in the middle. Right now, I'm guessing you're about halfway done with your book. And what I would like you to do, let me move this again, is I want you to read chapters 9 and 10 from I Survived. That will just keep us on pace. But to do this work, it could be from any chapters in your I Survive book so far. I want you to reflect on all that you've read so far from your I Survive book. Please locate a part where the author is giving clues about something very important. Use the organizers in this lesson to assist you and remember the examples I gave during the lesson. Then, in your Reading Google Doc, please write down the clues you discovered and what you think they might really mean. What is the author trying to get you to notice? And why do you think she's doing that, right? We all have the same author with I Survived, Lauren Tarshis. So why is she putting in some of those clues? What is it supposed to help you remember? So guys, you'll reflect back in your I Survive book after reading 9 through 10. You're going to do the same thing as Mr. Maloney. You're going to think about what you've read. What's been repeated? When has a character acted differently than you thought he or she would? When did something seem different than you would expect? Maybe with a character or maybe with something else. And then you are going to write a thorough answer. It's not going backwards, guys, but you're going to write a thorough answer like I did in your Reading Google Doc. And then it's already something you have shared with your teacher. Remember, just keep adding on to your Reading Google Doc. And then also, could you please listen to chapter 5 from Number the Stars? And you'll find that link either in the email sent to parents, or if your teacher is sharing that in the Google Doc area, you'll find it there. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Keep working hard and keep reading Number the Stars and I Survived. Thanks for watching, guys. Oh no.